In a deep forest where towering pines reached for the sky and moss blanketed the ground like a soft carpet, lived a little fawn named Leaf. His fur was as soft as morning mist, and his eyes were large and gleaming, full of curiosity about the world. Leaf was born in spring when the forest awoke from its winter slumber, and every blade of grass, every leaf, seemed a marvel to him. He loved darting along narrow paths, leaping over streams, and sniffing flowers that bloomed under the warm rays of the sun. His mother, a graceful doe named Zara, always stayed close, shielding him from the dangers lurking in the forest depths. But Leaf was not one to stay still. His tiny heart beat with a thirst for adventure, and he often wandered a bit farther than his mother allowed. "Don't go beyond the old pine, Leaf," Zara would say, her voice gentle but firm. "That's where the human world begins, and it's full of mysteries and dangers." Leaf would nod, but his curiosity was stronger than his fear. He longed to see what lay beyond the forest's edge, where the air smelled not only of pine but of something foreign, unfamiliar. One morning, as dew still sparkled on the grass, Leaf decided to embark on a small adventure. Zara was peacefully sleeping in the shade of an oak, and he, stepping quietly to avoid waking her, scampered toward the forest's edge. The sun had just risen, bathing everything in golden light. Leaf felt like a hero, as if he were setting off on an epic quest, like those whispered about by the forest birds. He hopped over roots, dodged thorny bushes, and finally reached the old pine, the very one that marked the boundary. Beyond the pine, he saw something strange, a tall metallic wall glinting in the sunlight. It was a fence separating the forest from a human road. Leaf had never seen anything like it. The fence's bars were cold and hard, but there were gaps between them, wide enough for him to slip through. "If I pass through, I'll see the human world," Leaf thought, his heart racing with excitement. He cautiously pushed his head between the bars. The metal chilled his ears, but he pressed forward stubbornly. His front hooves made it to the other side, but then something went wrong. His hips got stuck, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't move forward or back. Leaf panicked. He thrashed, trying to free himself, but the bars only dug deeper into his fur. Terrified, he let out a loud, piercing cry that echoed through the forest. Leaf's cries were heard by a passerby, a young man named Max, who was walking home along the country road. Max was a student who loved nature and often roamed the area, photographing forest landscapes. He stopped, listening closely. The cry came again, filled with desperation and fear. Max knew instantly that someone was in trouble. He dropped his backpack on the roadside and ran toward the fence where the sound was coming from. When he reached the spot, his heart sank. A tiny fawn with eyes full of tears was struggling desperately to escape the metal trap. His slender legs trembled, and his fur was ruffled from the struggle. Max knelt beside him and spoke softly. "Easy, little one, I'll help you." He knew he had to be careful not to scare the fawn further, but the sturdy fence was too much for him alone. The bars were too strong. Max pulled out his phone and dialed the local ranger service. "Hello, there's a fawn stuck in a fence near the old pine on the country road. Please come quickly," he said, trying to sound calm despite the worry churning inside him. The dispatcher promised a team would arrive in 15 minutes. While Max waited, he sat beside Leaf, humming a soft tune to calm the little fawn. Though frightened, Leaf stopped thrashing and gazed at the human with his big eyes. They held a mix of fear and hope. Max reached out to pet him but stopped, afraid of making things worse. Instead, he kept talking. "It's going to be okay, buddy. We'll get you out." The rangers arrived quickly. There were 3 of them: Anna, an experienced woman with kind eyes; Serge, a sturdy man with tools; and Stan, a young guy new to the service. They assessed the situation immediately. Anna approached Leaf and spoke to him softly, as if he could understand her. "Don't be scared, little one. We're here to help," she whispered, while Serge and Stan examined the fence. "We can't cut the metal. It could hurt him," Serge said, frowning. "Let's try bending the bars by hand." They put on gloves and began working carefully. The bars were tough, but the Rangers moved in sync, taking care not to frighten the fawn. Anna held Leaf's head to keep him still, while Max stood nearby, ready to assist if needed. Leaf trembled, but sensed that these people meant him no harm. The metal creaked under the Ranger's hands, and finally the gap widened. "Come on, little guy, you're free now," Anna said, gently nudging Leaf. He took a step forward, then another, and suddenly he was free. His legs wobbled with relief, but he quickly steadied himself and made a few hesitant leaps toward the forest. Everyone froze, watching him. Leaf reached the old pine, but suddenly stopped. He turned his head and looked back at the people who had saved him. In his eyes was something indescribable, as if he were saying, "Thank you." Max smiled, feeling warmth spread through his chest. Anna and Serge exchanged glances, and Stan, unable to hold back, exclaimed, "He's so cool!" Leaf lingered for a moment, then, as if deciding it was time to go home, leaped into the tall grass and vanished into the forest. The humans stood by the fence, feeling they'd been part of something meaningful. Max pulled out his phone and filmed a few seconds of the fawn disappearing, though he knew this moment would stay in his heart forever. When Max got home, he couldn't stop thinking about Leaf. He uploaded the video to YouTube with a simple caption, "Rescuing a little fawn." In the description, he shared the story, giving credit to the Rangers for their kindness. The video quickly gained views. People left comments thanking him for the heartwarming story, and some even shared their own encounters with forest animals. Back in the forest, Leaf returned to Zara. She had sensed his absence and was already searching for him. Seeing her son safe and sound, she let out a relieved sigh. Leaf nuzzled against her as if apologizing for his adventure, but something new had taken root in his heart, a realization that the world beyond the forest wasn't so frightening when there were those willing to help. In the city, Max gazed at the sunset sky, thinking about how one little fawn had reminded him that even in a busy world there was room for kindness. He hoped Leaf would grow strong and brave, and perhaps one day they'd meet again by the old pine where this story began. Dear friend, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming adventures.